Welcome, in front of me is a Motorola Moto G10, and today I will show you an unboxing along with an overview of this phone. Now, starting straight off, I will mention that this phone has been already unpacked, so I'll try to make it as faithful as actual unboxing as I can, but yeah, just keep that in mind. So, this is obviously the box that it will come in, nothing really special. It's a fairly kind of trash box for a phone. Then we got the phone itself, and then some paperwork that we don't really care about, a 10-watt charger, and also charging cable, and that's about it. So just throw that to the side and get the phone here. There we go. So like I said, it is already unboxed, and that includes also the setup. So what you can see right here is a 6.5 inch 720p display, precisely 720 by 1600 IPS LCD display, typical resolution for basically a budget device, with a, I would say, typical display as well, meaning IPS LCD. Now when it comes down to percentage of the screen, it is an 82.2% screen to body ratio with a 269 pixels per inch, so it won't be necessarily the most packed display, but I think it looks fine, honestly, for 720p. I'm not really complaining, although I don't have an eagle sight here, so it's not 2020. So it might look a little bit worse than it does to me. Now moving on to the camera setup here, we do have it looks like quadruple camera setup. Now the main sensor is a 48 megapixel wide, then we have an 8 megapixel ultra wide and 2 megapixel macro and 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now these two last ones are just another garbage, and I wouldn't really count them in the camera setup. So in reality, you could say you have a 2 sensor setup here, or maybe 1.5, depending how you want to look at it. And at the front we have an 8 megapixel wide sensor. Now going to the camera, just so you can see the actual quality of these photos, just capture a couple of photos of a plant maybe. So this is the first one will be the wide one, then the ultra wide, and then the macros. I'm gonna get way closer. And one more thing I'm gonna do is a portrait shot, assuming I can actually find it. There we go, portrait. There we go. For some reason didn't want to capture a photo. So we're starting off with the portrait right here. Let me see the brightness. It is maxed out, which is a little bit of a shame. So portrait, assuming you can give a couple seconds for it to actually focus correctly and determine what is the background and what isn't. Does an okay job. Honestly, it makes it look like it's not even using the depth sensor, because usually when camera is using a depth sensor, it creates this kind of like weird halo where everything that is in focus is in focus, and then whatever shouldn't be in focus just kind of has this like line of blurriness where it just goes completely out of it. So let me quickly check this is the wide sensor, and there is one key difference between those, the color. So you can see this image is way colder when you compare it to, for instance, the macro or wide one. So this is still macro, portrait right here, wide, and then the super cold, the normal wide sensor, not the ultra wide. Let me quickly capture it a little once more. Maybe there is some setting that it wasn't pro mode, so maybe that was the case. Let's try it again. So yeah, it looked like the pro mode was the one to blame here. And obviously you can see that in the normal one, 48 megapixel, it does an okay job. It's nothing really mind-blowing. I do need to move a little bit further back to actually gain the quality. As you can see, this part maybe right here is a little bit too close, so it is a little bit, tiny bit out of focus, but then anything below that, a little bit further, is, well, I would say fairly sharp. I know it might be hard to see this exactly on the camera, but yeah, you can maybe hopefully see some kind of detail here. So that being said, if we go back to the macro, which that's not it, let's go back to photos. So macro, this is the macro shot. So right off the bat you can see that the quality of a macro is abhorrent, and I wouldn't call it usable. Honestly, the 48 megapixel sensor does a better job at macro photo than the actual dedicated sensor for it. So just don't use it. That would be my what I have to say about it. And the portrait sensor, if you give it time, I don't think the camera is even using it. It tries to. If you can see it like on the viewfinder, if I go to, let's see here, portrait, so I can get to show you what I mean. So I'm not sure if this is visible, but I can sometimes see like this sharpness shifting, kind of where it's basically having a focus and then around kind of makes it blurry. Let's see if that. So this effect right here is really visible, what I wanted to show. It might not be the best example because I did kind of deliberately make it not be able to focus on what I wanted, but you can, because of that, see the drastic difference. So if you look at right at the bottom, even though it is a little bit darkish, maybe let me blow it up. Not sure if that will help, but if you can see it right here at the bottom, it is in focus as it should be. The needles right there are completely in focus, and then you have like a line almost right around here, and everything here is blurry. And that's kind of what the depth sensor does for the most part. So I was saying that I don't think the camera is using it in the previous shot, because it did it normally. As though the photo was taken without it at all. So yeah, that being said, the photos here are mediocre at best, and this phone necessarily won't be the best for taking photos. Now the 48 megapixel sensor is okay, it's serviceable. I wouldn't really rely on it to capture consistently amazing photos, but other than that, the rest of the sensors I would say are kind of pointless. To be honest, the 2 megapixel, both of the 2 megapixels are completely unusable in my opinion, and then the 8 megapixel wide sensor, just the 8 megapixel is not enough for a wide sensor, and that's kind of what I would say. Now, moving on to the actual specifications of this device, it has a Snapdragon 460. It comes in two different variants, so 64 and 128 GB storage with 4 GB of RAM, 5000 mAh battery, so that is a really big battery. It's actually nice. 10 watts charger, fingerprint sensor on the back. You can basically the Motorola logo right here. It does have, I believe, a headphone jack. Yep, it does, right up here. Comes with Type-C, which is also nice, and it's basically all the mentions that I can give about what comes with it. Personally, for the price that this comes around, which is about 130 euros, I think, let me quickly check. G30, I want to see just the price tag of a different model of this phone, which is the price. Okay, there we go. So considering this comes at around 130 euros, I wouldn't really say this is worth the money. Personally, I would advise you to go for the step up of this model, so the G30 instead of the G10, which will The camera is a tiny bit improved, not by much, but you have basically a better processor, either the same amount of storage and RAM or more. The price tag is a little bit more at 180, but you then also have a 90 Hz refresh rate display, which I would say it's way better than what you have right here in terms of how the user experience itself. It just improves a lot in my opinion with the 90 Hz. But yeah, camera is a little bit better, but not by much, including still the 8 megapixel ultra and the 2 megapixel macro in-depth. But yeah, you have a better charger, a little bit of a better display here and the price tag isn't necessarily much more, which that's why I would say it is worth the step up of like 50 euros, paying more and having, in my opinion, a way better device than this is right here. So that being said, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one. Step it up a little bit higher and you will have a way better device that will perform way better than this. So that being said, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.